Hey man, how's it going?
Oh, not too bad. Howdy doody. Just went for a
Howdy
walk with
doody.
my mom, and it's a little hot outside for us because we're
Yeah.
we're northerners.
Yeah.
At
It
least
is quite
bred
warm today,
bred
isn't it? Yeah.
northerners. Yeah, yeah. Mom and I, we don't do well, especially me, but we don't do well when it's over 25 degrees, 24 degrees, I'll say Celsius.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I'm
Yeah.
not very good in the heat either, but yes, thank you for coming back and welcome back everyone to Bite My Shiny Metal Cast, episode 11 of season 3, The Cyber House Rules. Yeah,
Not to be confused with insane in the
insane in the
mainframe.
mainframe. Yeah, because you and I have talked about this off mic before that
Yeah,
I've always
you
found
confuse them.
confusing.
You always
Yeah,
confuse, and perfectly makes sense. It perfectly
yeah,
makes sense because the one episode Fry goes to a house where all the cyber robots people
yeah,
are, so that makes perfect sense. And because you said this to me, it confused me, and I
yeah,
confused the
sure.
episode myself. I gave
Uh,
Anthony the wrong title card, and now I have to make this episode's one after
Yeah,
this.
that's okay though. It's one of those things that happens. But yeah, the opening caption here, please rise for the Futurama theme song. So that's pretty cool. They're well into their established lore and their established like fans and everything that they can now have a Futurama theme song, so to speak, that everybody would recognize.
Yeah,
Which of course we all know.
with
Yep.
bells.
Yep. Dun,
Like those
dun,
little
dun,
those little
dun, dun.
handbells that probably most of us played in elementary school for that one
Sure.
afternoon at
Yep.
a parents' concert or something like that.
That's right.
Hi
Yep.
mom, hi dad, we're so proud of you.
And I used those, or that sound I should say, not, it's a digital one, but that's the intro and our outro of our podcast here. Like,
Podcast, yeah,
that's the noise I make here with the tune of the Futurama theme song. So it's nice to see that as the caption. So we open at the
it's a good theme
Planet
song.
Express. It's one of the best, I would say. We open at Planet Express HQ, and we just right onto the TV, and they're the trio are watching Morbo and Linda.
For
Uh,
Good Morning Earth, which is like Good
Good
Morning
Morning
America,
America.
but for
Yeah.
Earth.
Yeah. Good Morning Earth. I love how it's like them in like their like PJs and
PJs,
their like early
robe.
morning clothes or robes. And Morbo's having like a polite and pleasant discussion about cookies. And we learned that his wife's name is was it Fran or Fawn or something, right? I think it's
One of
Fawn.
those two starts with an F.
Yeah. And because in another episode, I think the one we had with Mitchell, or not Mitchell, sorry, with Andrew, with you as well, Mitchell, but with Andrew, and we had the one with Nixon, the head of the polls, and he mentions that he does have a family, right? He has like
Yes,
kids and everything, and they're belligerent or something. So we have confirmation of that. Um,
Fawn. His wife's name's Fawn.
Thank you. So we have the
Got
trio
your back.
watching it, and the doorbell rings, and I do like, little funny joke here. Like she looks like, hey, do you guys one of you want to go get that? And both Bender and
Both
Fry
shake
are
their
like,
heads. Yeah.
nope. No. So she gets up. And it turns out it's actually good that she did because it's a basket that sounds like it has a crying baby in it. So
I,
she's
I,
like,
I like specifically
oh,
what she says here, a doorbell baby,
a
as if
doorbell.
this is
This
a
is a common
regular
thing. Yeah,
occurrence. Yeah,
exactly. So,
which is sad when you really think about it.
mhm. Well, we
Especially
also
'cause
learn a little bit more about this is a very Leela centric episode, right? So we learn a lot more about Leela's history within the it is an
orphan.
orphanage, but it's literally called an orphanarium. So it's like updated the word for it. That's the name of the place.
Yeah, I feel like it's like an aquarium sort of thing where
Yeah.
people just kind of came by and go, "Oh, look, there's the orphanarium. Let's
Well, it's
wave
like
at them." Like a
it's either
terrarium,
it's either like a terrarium, an
which would make more
aquarium, as you
sense.
mentioned,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
a prison because it has the bars and
Yeah,
stuff.
but like prisons don't necessarily have like an eum at the end of the night. It's like a
No, just
correction
in.
facility or something like that. They
Yeah.
never have like it's a correctionism or something like that.
No, no, no. It's not being so perfect with that. No, you're right. It's
Yeah.
just the prison in sound or whatever. But I think we're overthinking it. It's supposed to be like a terrarium or an
Oh,
aquarium.
oh
It's just supposed to be funny. But yeah. Oh, you found it. The suspension of disbelief. Yeah.
yeah. I have a little sticky note that was
Yeah.
crumpled up very badly during the move, so I had to uncrumple it.
Here, but you found it though. It's all
Oh
good.
yeah.
But yeah, so there's a basket with a what sounds like a baby in it before Fry and Bender come out, and Bender starts like breaking the basket, like starts stepping on it, to which then Leela like shows off her karate moves and kicks him. But it turns out it's not an actual baby. Bender did not kill a baby. It is a card, actually. It's inviting Leela. Happens to be a speaking one. It's actually, I believe it's the same actress as the one from the card, from the Mother's Day card, if
I
I'm
think
not
that was
mistaken, right?
Tara Strong. Yeah.
Was it Tara Strong or somebody we thought was Tara Strong turns out to be somebody else?
I think
right?
Laura Tom, she does some baby voices too for the show. So
I think she also did one of the orphans.
Yeah. Generally, they get women to play kids and stuff for voices and stuff because it's very weird, disorienting when you see a little baby going coo. Hey, I'm a baby.
Yeah.
Hey
there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they bring out this card. It's inviting her to a reunion to her old, as we mentioned earlier, the orphanarium, right? Her old orphanage, which is called
Minimum Security Orphanarium.
Thank you.
I love how it has minimum security.
Yep.
It's just like, are they keeping the kids in or people stealing the kids?
I think they're keeping them in because Leela mentions when they go, right, that the bars seemed quite a bit thicker back then.
Yeah.
So
yes, it's very up in the air of like, were people stealing kids or were they keeping them in? Because they would go places. They would go places and stuff like that. It was like a little school as well because they'd go on field trips, which we see later on in this episode too. And
it's a housing center, right? Like it's literally it's these kids don't have a home, right? So they have to live there and they have to go to school there and they have to do all these things there, right? So that's probably why they do it. But yeah, we're introduced to Leela's school, and when she's invited to this, Bender asks like, "Oh, so are we going to go? Do you want to go?" And she actually says like, "No way. I hate those kids. I hate those other orphans. I don't want to ever see them again." And she recalls a time in the past that when she was really young. And this is kind of cute actually. So Leela was like, this little girl, glasses, like little pigtails or whatever, freckles or acne or whatever. I think she had braces as well.
They show her throughout the years a few times, but a young kid with glasses.
Yeah, and she's just a little girl, and she's like just being picked on for only having one eye.
Yeah, they're out in the schoolyard / prison yard because they actually show the background, which backgrounds are very fun and stuff like that if you pay attention, especially in Futurama and Simpsons, because they actually put like little jokes in there. But the background, as we flash back to her childhood, is like brick wall with the
spiked fences,
razor wire, and like it's barbed wire and stuff like that at the top. So it's just like it's more of a prison than it is an orphanage at this point.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, they kept calling her one eye. So they keep on calling her that, and she was sad, obviously. And then one of my favorite parts of this episode is the blind kid who keeps on making fun of her because at least he has two eyes, but he can't actually see. So he's just like the worst person. But in any case, I think his name is Kirk, and he'll come back later. We'll make mention of him again. But in any case, Fry actually, whether or not he meant to or not, but he actually does convince her to go. And so she's like, yeah, okay, maybe I will, rub it into some of these people that I'm actually a little bit more successful than they would have thought. So they decide to take this trip. And so the three of them go to the orphanarium. And it's very run down, as Mitchell and I were talking about earlier, right? It has the bars on the windows. And there's also because in the Futurama universe, the owls are more the infestation than rats or cockroaches or anything. So there are owls hooting all over the place, like they're walking around.
Yeah, I think we've explained this before. Because New York has such a big rat problem, they decided to get owls to do it. Even though cats, I think, would have been better, but there's a whole issue of spaying and neuter them, and they actually thought about this in real life. But so in the Futurama they used owls, and now owls are a problem.
Owls are the infestation, so they actually have owl exterminators and all this stuff in the future. Yeah. But in any case, we're introduced to I believe his name is Mr. Vogel. I'm not 100% sure.
Warden Vogel.
Well, I think she just calls him Mr. though, right? Mr. Vogel. But in any case, Bureaucrat 135, and he's a nice guy. Apparently he used to say mean things to her, but they seem to have a really nice relationship. So they hug.
Worthless and no one will ever love you.
Yeah. So he seems okay, but notice his bureaucrat set, right? So he's stationed here. He's not actually specifically looking after orphans. He's just literally stationed by the government here because he's a bureaucrat. But he is not as high up as Hermes, right? Because Hermes is what, 60?
37?
Was 30? Is it 37 now? Because he went up, right? He went because
he got promoted, then he got demoted, then he got promoted, then demoted.
Right, something like this, right? He was going for something like 34 or something. He was going to get lower.
They have never once mentioned it again, as far as I remember.
That's true. Not until the episode in the future when we get to
Spectre 5.
Spectre 5, yeah, exactly. But I digress. Bureaucrat 135 of Mr. Vogel. So anyways, they enter the reunion, and it's in this nice little hall. It looks kind of like a gymnasium, I guess, for the kids. So they're all adults, and we're introduced to a few of these random former orphans, I guess. Like they're adults now, so they're just all hanging out.
At what point
And
do you not become an orphan, or you stop being an orphan?
I guess never. But
Technically,
they're not kids anymore, I should say. So
yeah.
they're not the orphan
You're an
children.
adult, so
They're adult
you function
orphans.
differently, right? You aren't dependent. I think that's what the government would legally call you. You aren't dependent.
Exactly. So Leela shows off an old, like there's a whole wall of photos of her time there, of
Yeah.
like where the orphanarium had all these kids, and she shows off a photo of herself, and they're looking at the photo and they can't really see her, but she mentions that like they didn't allow her to be on like stands with them, so she's over on like quote unquote Cootie Town.
Yeah.
Like,
She,
oh, kids can be so
basically,
horrible.
there's like the whole class, and then off to the side, like way off to the side by herself is her kind of thing. And then Bender points out, hey, who's this normal looking guy?
Normal looking guy. So this guy, and he'll come back in. This is Adelaide Atkins, who happens to also have been a crush of Leela back when she was a girl. So this is also another flashback scene, and the same scene is happening. They're calling her One Eye. There's I do like this, like stupid as a French guy. It's
From
like
the French kid with a beret.
Yeah. And then behind the French kid is Adelaide Atkins. So I thought that was pretty good. So in any case, it's it draws in, and like, one of those, she clearly has a crush on him, and so everything fades away except for Adelaide Atkins, and she goes, oh, right, when she's a girl.
Yeah, it's called swooning, Anthony. Have you never made a woman swoon? I have.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay. Hey, man. I believe you.
Didn't last very long.
I believe you. So they go there, and then Leela's like, okay, I'm going to rub my success in these other orphans' faces or whatever. So she goes over to a group of them, and honestly, yeah, they're all kind of losers. Like they're not. I think one of them's like donates anything that falls out of him, essentially. The other one is I can't even remember. Like they're just working in like a chop shop or something, or they're just
basically the low end of society, and which is kind of sad because it's kind of true.
Like these guys don't really amount to anything. But then Leela walks over and she's like, hey, look, I'm like a space captain, all this kind of stuff. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's good for you. Yeah, that's really good for someone with one eye. And she's like insulted because they continuously think that she's lesser because she only has the one eye. And even Kirk, who we see as an adult now, and he's like balding and he's blind. And he's like, it's old one eye. And then she like tries to insult him, but it turns out he's also deaf. Like somehow he knew she was there. So I thought that was pretty funny.
That is a good joke. That is a good joke on that part. Because it's like, oh, shut up, Kirk, you stupid blind guy. He's deaf now too. Oh.
Yeah. So even if you have a good joke, you can't even hear it. But it turns out Adelaide Atkins, as an adult, is now there, and he basically saves Leela from them. He says, like, yeah, you guys are all worthless. Like, at least Leela like amounted to something. Like, why don't you go run along or whatever, right? So he starts talking with Leela. And meanwhile, while this is happening, it cuts over to Bender and Fry, and they're as Fry had mentioned earlier in the episode, he was going to be like, oh, what if your friends came and just ate all the hors d'oeuvres? So Fry and Bender have just been drinking and eating all the food at this place. They don't talk to anybody and haven't been doing anything because they're not orphans, or at least they're not part of the orphanarium. So as they're doing this, Vogel talks to Fry and offers him, like, would he like an orphan or like a child? And Fry says no. But then he hears that he overhears Vogel say that
Bender overhears him.
Sorry, Bender overhears Vogel say to Fry that if you do take an orphan, the government will help out with like $100 a week per orphan. Yeah. So, as Bender does, because he schemes and all he does is scheme, he hears this and he decides that he wants to adopt an orphan or more to try and get some of the money. And then we come back with Leela and Adelaide, and they're looking at those old photos, and we see that Adelaide is now a doctor. And he's a doctor that focuses in like phaser surgery or phaser eye surgery.
Plastic surgery.
A futuristic form of plastic surgery rather. So he basically can take skin from other places of a body, graft it onto other places, and make it look a certain way so that you can look quote unquote normal. This is the key word of this episode. Adelaide Atkins, and you can verify this, Mitchell. Like Adelaide is not strange. He's not quirky. He's like boring. He's
Yes,
like the most boring person ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the true neutral. He's true neutral.
Like he should be one of the Neutronians on the
Well, you know
neutral
what?
planet.
He could be half that. We don't know.
That's true. He was an orphan. Maybe he was
He was
abandoned.
Yeah. And I've gone to his the infosphere page, and there's really nothing on him. He's only had 2 cameos this episode, and he's in a background character in the Beast with a Billion Backs.
Right, because everybody else is, or that one.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So this could be our head canon where he is half gray person.
I can believe that. And then they abandoned him on Earth, and then that's it.
Wow.
And they're like, oh, we don't feel much about this.
Yeah. Well, it could have been a wife, human, an Earthling with a gray person. And how do you feel about leaving this kid behind? I have no opinion on it whatsoever.
No opinion whatsoever. It's like, okay, so I'm going to abandon this child. That is up to you.
Yeah, that is up to you. Yes.
And then,
all I know is that my gut says maybe.
Maybe. Exactly.
Tell my wife hello.
So
I think that's one of your favorite characters and lines in the movie, in the entire show, isn't it?
Tell my wife I said hello.
No, just the gray guy in general.
Yeah, they're just funny. I just like the neutralness of it. I guess I think I liked it so much because Zap Brannigan hated it so much
yes.
from that episode. So that one was just one of my favorites.
Fly the white flag of war.
So anyway, Bender also then adopts said orphan. So back at the HQ, Leela is discussing the idea because Adlai has offered her the ability to to go back to this a little bit. Adlai offers her, because he's a phaser surgeon, to graft a fake eye onto her face and then kind of shorten or
going from one eye to 2 eyes.
Shrink her large eye into a smaller eye, move it over, and then put a fake eye onto her other side. So therefore, she looks like she has 2 eyes and looks like she's human. She cannot look out of said fake eye, but she'll still look like a human being, so to speak.
Appearance is a huge thing in the world, as very much so is.
So Leela has always, because obviously Leela's always had people, gawking at her and doing this, as the professor kind of jokingly does at the table.
Which where the professor talks about this too, and then just stares right and goes,
right. And then even in the very first episode, right, what was the first thing that Fry says to Leela, right? Yeah. So this is clearly something that has bothered her for a long time, and clearly shows with the orphans even calling her one eye. Like, we see a lot of development with Leela's past in this. So
yeah. It's like you said earlier, it's a very Leela centric episode.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's a good one. Yeah. For Leela.
I agree.
Out of all the Leela ones we got, I would say this is probably the 3rd best one.
Sure. I'd say it's one of the better ones for sure. As Leela does this, and she's like expressing and everything, only Fry seems to defend the idea that Leela is great the way she is, right? And this is coming obviously because Fry has feelings for her, but it's also like Fry knows that people are not supposed to be perfect if they're not. They should be the way that they are. Like, this is Fry right off the bat, but everybody else claims like, nope. You want to be perfect. Yeah. You want to do this or whatever.
Amy even admits she got some cuteness reduction.
Yes, and
which I find hilarious because she's so vain. Done. She's so vain, and she always wants to make Leela feel like not as pretty kind of thing. Because there's so many things. It's like, I've heard that lots of people like this. Well, I guess there's only cute girls that like this or something like that. Yeah, only cute girls got this.
This is where you shop for your boots. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that, right? Very catty remarks, so to speak. Right? Yeah.
Which we see way later.
Exactly. So. They all say this, and Fry says, no, you shouldn't care what other people think. And so Leela says, fine, I don't care what you think, and I'm going to get the surgery. And they're all like, yeah, except for Fry. At this point, then she's there at the hospital, and she goes through with the surgery. Yeah. And Adlai Atkins is the doctor who did it, obviously. So the group of them are there, and he does this like bait and switch type of uncovering, but it turns out to be like this pretty blonde woman. It's not actually Leela. So he's like, oh, sorry, wrong patient.
Marilyn Monroe looking lady.
Yeah. So
like the whole head's covered in bandage.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It really is, and it reveals this Marilyn Monroe lady. Like, everyone's like, and he's like, oh, whoops, sorry, wrong patient. Come over here.
Goes over to the next bed on the other side, and then
which has Leela on the bed name too, which I find hilarious.
I know. So he unwraps the bandages, and Leela looks great. Yeah, she looks just like a normal human being. and her pupil or whatever kind of falls off, and he kind of just draws on a pupil, so it's kind of a funny little animation thing, I guess, because they're cartoons, but thought that was kind of a funny thing. So yeah, she's super happy about it. She like feels her face, she looks in the mirror, and everybody's like, oh my god, like this is great, Leela, you look wonderful. And Fry is still the only one who thinks that this is ridiculous, right? He was happy that she looked the way she did.
But the hospital itself is called Taco Bellevue Hospital.
Taco Bellevue Hospital.
Yeah, it's just I feel like that's going to be a thing in the future,
right?
Like just where corporations buy hospitals, and then just that's a scary thought.
In another episode, there's also a Chihuahua doctor.
Grande.
Do you remember him? Yeah, Grande. Yeah, exactly.
I think that was in the Wars the H word one. I think that was in that one.
No, I don't think so. We haven't seen him yet. He's like something about a tumor or something. He's like Grande or something.
Oh, yeah. I think it's in 2 episodes, right? With Bender bending in the wind. Yeah.
Right. That's coming up. So
see, it's not just me confusing all this crap together. No, I guess it just is me. It's just me confusing all this crap together because I've watched this stuff so many times. It's just one big awesome blur.
Fair enough. But they finish the after the surgery. Leela's all happy, and they have this fun little montage of her being so happy that she's completely normal, and this montage
she throws out her sunglasses, monocles. Sorry,
she throws out her monocles. She buys
a bunch of
sunglasses and glasses because they're 2 things.
Yeah. What are those things called when you're at like the opera and those little
like eyeglasses or eye binoculars or whatever. Yeah.
She gets a pair of that.
Gets pairs of those because there's 2 of them, right? And we also get a little cameo of Mom's sons here, and they're all like, oh, who's that? And then as you and I were talking about beforehand, like this is Pretty Woman, the song that's played by Roy Orbison. And this is kind of cool it's like Pretty Woman walking down the street. Yeah.
And we just got copyright striked. You sung that so perfectly.
Did I? Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, there we go. Now we go. During the montage too, we also see her putting on makeup with Amy, and of course, because she has one big eye, she just does one layer of eyeshadow, which is not what you do when you have 2 eyes, right? So Amy helps her out, which is lovely and sweet. But I will say this. There's obviously been some fan-made live action stuff, and just I don't know, depicting Cyclopses in real life just always looks so weird.
Terrifying.
That's not terrifying, but just it looks so wrong, and because there's not many animals in this world that have 1 eye, I would say,
if any.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. I can't like I would even say like giant squid. Wait, no, that has 2 eyes.
I'm pretty sure most creatures will have at least 1 or at least 2 eyes, rather. Because insects will have multiple eyes.
Yeah, they have a billion compound eyes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
and spiders have 8. So
why bring up those?
But I think most creatures have 8. But if anybody knows of any creatures specifically that only have 1 eye, you can leave it in the comments.
Yeah, please.
But
I'm
not sure. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah.
That's hilarious. During the montage, she somehow meets the blind guy, and because he can't see or hear, right, she has to put his hand on her face.
Right.
And then he just looks so sad afterwards, so defeated. Are you that big of a bully? Where you're like, oh, hey, this is Leela. What? She has 2 eyes now?
2 eyes? No, nothing to bully. Now I am just the worst. At least I was better than her because I had 2 eyes. Yeah, no, Kirk is like, oh, and we'll never see Kirk again. At least it's not, as far as I'm aware. So, they go back, and she had like a wonderful day. And this is when we have Bender show up with, he has now, I don't want to say bought, he's acquired. Adopted, sure. Yeah, adopted's better. He has adopted 12 humans or 12 orphans, right? And he gets $1,200 from the government, $100 an orphan. And he's, using this money, he can do all these kinds of things, right? So as he does this, they proclaim to him like, "Oh, Daddy Bender, like we're hungry," and all this stuff, and he's freaking out because he's like, "Come on, like I just fed you." Clearly, he's obviously in it for the money, right?
Yes.
But then I think this is one of your favorite lines. I would say it's pretty good. It's like, so Albert, one of the chubbier. This poor kid, this chubbier orphan, and he says like, "Can we have Bender burgers again?" And then Bender screams out like, "No, the cat shelter's on to me."
It's pretty funny.
So Adelaide Atkins comes in later.
Into Planet Express, the ship area.
Yeah, he comes to check in on Leela, At least that's his excuse. Mind you, I did see this. So when I remember when I watched this episode a long time ago, I never really thought about it. But he walks in and he's wearing this like shirt, right? Because he talks about it. It's a Hawaiian themed shirt, but it's like all black and white,
Gray
right?
tones,
grays, right? And he literally says like, "Oh, I came in to get my Hawaiian shirt." Like, what word does he use? Like
toned down.
Toned down, right? Because it was like bright and colorful. So this guy is like so boring. He thinks it's too flashy. He even thinks blinking is flashy, mind you, but he thinks this shirt is too flashy, a Hawaiian shirt, that he gets it toned down to gray. I'm now thinking he's actually part of the neutral race. He must be partly.
The head canon works. The head canon works.
It kind of fits here. So he's like going right to gray because that's what they were always wearing too, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, he comes in because he's the doctor and he's going to check on Leela, and Fry is there working on the ship with her. So he's there and he says like, "Oh, I'd love to maybe take you out or something because I think that you'd like you're quite attractive or whatever and whatever." And he says like, "I've never been really good with words. This is why I'm in such a delicate conundrum." But he asks her out Saturday. She accepts because she's always had a crush on this guy, and he's like fairly handsome and he's a doctor. So she says yes. Fry's like, what the hell? Like the only reason he's asking you out is because you have two eyes. Like he doesn't care about you if you look like yourself. This is ridiculous. She claims that he's jealous, which Fry like at first denied, but then he realizes like, oh, actually, yeah, you're right. I am jealous. But his point does remain valid, as he states. This is true. And at that point, Zoidberg comes in and he's like, oh, be careful with that doctor. Like doctors are quite poor. And Leela tells him that no, actually they're rich. Now, I think this is a bit of continuity, right? Because we just had an episode where Zoidberg and his uncle, right? His uncle needed him because doctors are supposed to have a lot of money, hence why he brought him into there. So shouldn't Zoidberg already know that doctors mostly make a lot of money or should be making a lot of money?
I don't think he really ever paid attention to that sort of thing. And yeah, he should know that. But I just think it's just a continuation of the joke that he's poor.
Okay. Because then he freaks out at Leela like, what?
That can't be true.
Yeah. So we then cut over to Bender because the orphans have asked him for food, right? So Bender takes the orphans to, what is this bar called? Ozargnak's pub. Okay. Or Ozargnak's pub, sorry. It's like a play on like an Irish pub or whatever, but it's clearly an alien.
O'Brien, O'Reilly.
Right, yeah.
Anthony, Mitchell.
Right, but not really.
They've also added like a new holiday or something too, because on the window there's a banner that says your St. Rodman's Days.
Yeah, St. Rodman. Mm-hmm.
Oh, St. Patrick doesn't exist anymore. It's now St. Rodman's.
Rodman, or it could be something related to like is it a robot thing, or it could be because like there's a couple of robots that are there, so it could be like a robot themed thing, or yes, it could be an alien thing, right? Because it's clearly an alien named pub, right? That is trying to sound more Earthican, as they would say, right? It just puts like an O at the front so that more humans would want to eat and drink there, maybe. Who knows? But this pub, we actually see, I think this is the third time we see it. The first time being like the very first episode, which is a nice little callback to that.
Yeah.
And the second time is when Amy and Leela go out because Nibbler was flushed down the toilet. So Bender gets her little implant of her emotions. And that's the bar that they go to when Leela's like leaving and Leela's feeling all this jealous anger and Bender's picking it up, right? So that's at this pub. So Bender goes there quite frequently. And he says like, okay, there you go, kids. There's food, there's drinks, there's a bathroom. Go have fun, go nuts. And so just make sure to keep it within a reasonable amount. He's trying to make a profit. So the orphans leave him, and they're just like throwing things and making noises or whatever. And at the pub, Bender gets hit on by some fembot that wants to like hook up with him or whatever. But then the kids get in the way, and he screws up his chance of it. So he gets really pissed off at them.
Shut it, kids. Dad's trying to make it with the floozy.
Yeah. Grandma's conka toy in it. Yeah, exactly. So later we see Adelaide and Leela on their date, and they go to the municipal arbitorium, or arboretum, sorry. And this is just Arbor is basically a tree or trees or whatever, so I guess it's just like a tree garden, and it does have a joke saying like, yes, we do have looking at trees. So I guess people have like asked, hey, what can we do here? So there's a tree that gives flowers. We see a extra beautiful bouquet. We also see Adelaide choose average for Leela.
Yeah. See, so, I love how you're convincing yourself after I said it probably is half
he's probably
gray
half
person.
of it. I mean,
and you're just
every
like,
word he uses.
Yeah, there's more and more proof every time.
Yeah. Well, every word he uses average, standard, normal, acceptable, right? I think the only time he changes it when they're talking about adopting. He's like, that's absolutely satisfactory. Like that's like the only time it's slightly better maybe, but yeah, he's very neutral in a lot of things, right?
Yeah. So he gets Leela a standard bouquet. Yes. And I love this little speech that Leela says here and stuff like that. She's like, "Oh, Adelaide, this has been great. No one's really avoided staring at me, but they're also staring at me." Or avoided not staring at me. I just love that little like counterproductive line.
Yes, no, they're all incredibly like she's very normal looking, right? She's very average looking. So everything she does is like perfectly normal now, right? No problems. And the line at the end, and he's like, "Yeah, you're 999,999 in a million."
Yeah, it's
like that's exactly what a woman wants to hear, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Never, the woman that you love, so to speak, in this situation, is always the number one of everything, no matter what.
Yep, they're 1 in a million, right?
But it has to be the number one in the positive sense. You can't say the other way. You're the number one worst thing. No, the number one best thing.
So later they all go to Elzar's, right? And
beforehand, after he gives her that speech, like there's romantic music.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
And they lean in for a kiss, but all that Adelaide does is just give her a little peck on the lips, which she like is like ooh about, right. Which I think is like weird, but also kind of sweet in a way.
Yeah, it's very weird for them to do so, but it's like it's very much an Adelaide thing.
Yeah.
Right? So
choose the most normal, acceptable thing possible. That's him.
Exactly. So yeah, they all end up going to Elzar's, and we've been to Elzar's a dozen times at this point, right? Elzar's is quite well known, especially Elzar, the chef.
Yeah.
And it's we know Elzar very well now, and they're all sitting at their normal table. There's a lot of people. It's a very nice restaurant. They're all wearing their fancy clothes again. This is the second time or the third time we've seen Fry in like that turtleneck outfit.
Turtleneck with a blazer, sports coat,
blazer, whatever. Like this is his one formal look, right? But they're all there as her friends and coworkers, and they're there meeting Adelaide, right? So they get to know their boyfriend, which is, it's kind of nice that they all get to do that. And again, the only person who seems to be have any kind of issue with Leela's situation, because all she seems to care about now is how she always looks, right? She used to be more than that, is still Fry. To which then Fry actually does this little around the table, a very basic description, but it kind of summarizes all the characters in their element, right?
Yes, so he says like it's one of your favorite probably scenes of the show.
I do episode. Yeah, well, I do like it because it's kind of it's true, right? Like you can it evolves over the course of the series, but to this point, this is basically what these characters were, right? So he goes around and he mentions like Zoidberg, like he's a monster who. Notice he says monster again when it comes to an alien. So I think this is just what he calls it. Like Morbo was a monster on TV, but now, right? So I guess he just calls aliens monsters, right? But he's like a disgusting monster that eats garbage and smells like garbage and probably eats garbage or whatever. And then, damn straight. Yeah, damn straight, right? Like of course he does. And then he's like, and the professor's like this crackpot, like crazy scientist crackpot or whatever. He's like, right? Hermes is a Rastafarian accountant.
Telling me banana.
And Amy's a klutz from Mars.
Sploops.
So yeah, I like this. And then what does the professor say? He's like, yeah, and Fry, you have that brain thing.
I already did.
Right. So then he asks the poignant question to Leela. Do you want to be like us with all these crazy things and abnormalities and defects, or do you want to be like Adelaide, where there's nothing weird or abnormal whatsoever? And she's like, are you an idiot? Like, why would I not want to be normal? But to Fry's credit, as he does always, he says smart things, but he says them in a very stupid manner, right? What he means to say to her is like, do you want to be like boring and this kind of person, or do you want to have like, character? Do you want to have like a lifestyle? Do you want to be somebody recognizable and somebody who actually like has something about themselves that makes them want to be, friends with people like this, right? This is what he wants to ask, but he doesn't know how to say it because he's dumb. So Fry is just such a silly character sometimes. Any case, they're all in here, and yeah, she clearly denies that she wants to have anything to do with that. Meanwhile, at the exact same restaurant, because this seems to be the only restaurant that anybody eats at, Bender brings his 12 orphans. I guess they're not really orphans anymore. We'll call them his 12 kids to the same restaurant.
They have been adopted. You're right. Yeah, they're no longer orphans.
They're no longer they're no longer orphans. They're his kids. He literally adopted them. He doesn't own them.
What is with you and owning kids?
I don't know. I think there's just something about the way that Bender's doing this. He's not a parent. He's just like, he's running a business. So that's why I keep thinking he just runs. In fact, Adelaide even says later in this part, right? He's like, seeing that robot like have those children do his bidding. Right? Yeah. That's why it makes me think that. But in any case, his kids are all there eating and all this stuff. So he gets food, and then Elzar comes by, and clearly these kids are being raised by Bender, so they're rude and crude and all this kind of stuff. So at the end, Elzar gives him the check, and Bender's like, we don't have the money for this. So they skedaddle. They run out on the check, and Elzar chases them out of the restaurant. To which then Adelaide says like, oh yeah, seeing those children do his bidding kind of makes me think of kids of our own. And yeah, Leela and Adelaide are kind of considering kids. So I'm curious, how long do you think this relationship has been happening for in the time of this episode? Like a month?
I'm gonna use this little sticky note here again, just suspension of disbelief that they're just in love, and because like she's always had a crush on him, right? Like it's one of those childhood crushes, right? Where you go back to and you go, wow, so and so is still so pretty. Wow, they could be a terrible person because that's usually what happens in real life. People grow up and the crush that you once had was a fantasy as well as it was back then,
in your
right?
Head. Yeah,
so
exactly.
the fondness grows and grows and grows until it becomes warped into not reality. And it could just be one of those cases where just like oh yeah, I've always liked two-eyed you kind of thing, right? Versus one-eyed you, but you liked me always. Let's have a kid. Or it could just be that they actually were infatuated with each other, like what happens in real life. Some people just get together and they just click so instantly that they get married within a few months, and this grow, and that's wonderful. But it rarely happens, in my thoughts.
Yeah, for your description, I would say that she's probably closer to the former of what you mentioned. Like I think it's definitely she's so infatuated because it's like a kid she had a crush on when she was a kid, and he now likes her. Yeah. Yes, and she's still over the moon about considered being normal, right? Yes. She hasn't had that waking up feeling yet about like how special she is, kind of thing. Yeah.
Every so often in an episode, they'll always add something else to her. Like she has elbow talons, she has a butt boil that sings. It just like they keep adding more to her. It's just like
her tentacles.
I get that her tentacles that one episode and stuff like that, and which also asks other questions because they reversed all her mutation, but the eye thing, blah blah blah. But just they keep adding stuff to her, which is to like, hey, remember she's a mutant, she's got elbow talons now. It's just like, can we just? She has one eye. That's weird enough, and purple hair. Let's just stick with that kind of thing. But they keep adding to it. But yeah, I think she's just caught up in the moment of being normal with a normal guy, the most normal average guy ever.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think I think Leela is just swept into it, right? At this point. So
the heat of the moment.
And especially, like you said, suspension of disbelief for it. I'm just also thinking because Bender's actually this goes into the next scene. So we see that Bender and Fry are at their apartment, and I guess they've got rid of a lot of their furniture. They just set up all these bunk beds for these kids, right? And they're playing cards.
In Fry's closet.
Right, in Fry's closet, or Bender's closet, actually, right? In Fry's quote-unquote room. But yeah, they're all in there, and they're Bender and Fry are playing cards, and then the kids like want to hang out with the grown-ups, right? So they ask for like a story. And
little Sally, who you were right, I did look this up. Little Sally is voiced by
Lauren Tom, right?
No, Nicole St. John, and she only has two voices in this, where she does Little Sally, which is the three-eared orphan.
Sally,
and the comrade greeting card, which was only appeared once, which I love.
Right.
Like you're like, it's the same voice. Very good ear. Very good
Yeah.
ear.
I thought it was also the greeting card or the invitation card that they got at the beginning of the episode too.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, I thought that was her as well because it sounded like the same one to me. But whatever the case.
It's not in the credits, but I'm pretty sure if I looked more closely, I could probably find it. But I'm not
Sure.
going to worry too much about it.
Yeah, no problem. But it turns out those two are there, right? So
Yeah.
So yeah, Sally, and I think is it Albert that gives him like
the little fat kids named. There's only three named orphans. There's only three named orphans. The little black girl is Nina, 3-year with a tail,
yeah,
Sally,
right.
and then the fat kid Albert. There's another one in there too, and occasionally Tiny Tim, the robot orphan.
Oh, Tinny Tim, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he shows up in the group.
He gets
too.
in there
that's
every
right.
so often too, but like he's in a weird spot because he's also the same age as Hubert and Dwight. But he's not.
Right. He joins
same
them sometimes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's whenever they need a robot child to fill in that spot, they use Tinny Tim, right? Right. So they have this thing, and the kids want a story told or whatever. So they have like Bender's old rap sheet from like Bender steals something. So and they have this whole like, oh, I want to see the picture, and it's like Bender like holding a watch, and we also see Bender's height now. He's actually including his antenna, he's like just over 6 feet. But like without the antenna, he's like below it, right? Obviously, he's like 5'7" or something. So we kind of know Bender's height now. So make what you will of that, I guess. Like he's that high or that tall, and you can compare it to other characters.
Like he's just a little over 6 feet with the antenna. So
Everybody else is like roughly lower than 6 feet, right?
Yeah.
Mostly, except for like Bubblegum Tate and those guys.
We haven't seen those guys yet.
We have not. Yeah. So that's a great episode too. So
love that one.
He tells them all like, okay guys, story's over. I'm sick of looking at you. Go to bed. So they all go there, and he and Fry go into like the main area, right? I guess the other side of the closet. Mind you, I don't remember seeing, because this is not Bender's room, right? Because that's like the front area. That's like the actual room of the apartment. This is like another area, so I guess they have like another door or something. But in any case, Bender and Fry are. You know, I do like this as well. When they come out, then there's a little picture on the door of that thing, and it talks about Fry, like primitive man found in cryo chamber or something. It's like a newspaper piece that they have, and it's Fry, so it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So blink and you'll miss it too. Like as soon as I saw it, I had to go back because I had to like pause it just to read what it said, but you don't see it again afterwards.
No.
So Bender's doing the math. And it turns out that these kids are actually costing him like $10 more than what he's actually getting from the government. So he's actually losing money, and they have to deal with this. So Bender decides, like, okay, enough is enough. I have to get rid of these kids. And at this point, obviously, Adelaide and Leela are thinking of like having kids themselves. So I guess they're at his place. And here's more evidence to support your headcanon here, Mitchell. And I'm definitely on board with this. White wallpaper. I think his furniture is like a darker color. They're putting together like a puzzle that has like only white and black pieces or something. Like this is clearly like he must be related somehow to the Neutronians or whatever.
He could even be like a quarter or something like that. Like maybe
who cares?
One of his parents.
He must be related somehow to it. Like no one is this boring.
No.
So
no one is.
Nobody in this universe could be this boring. So Adelaide and Leela, I should say, suggest like, oh, why don't we adopt? Because we were both orphans. We can adopt an orphan, and we can make these people happy or this person happy as well. And he says, that's a good idea or whatever. And he has like the one remark that is not neutral per se, or it's actually more positive. So they end up going to Bender and Fry's apartment because they know where he has a bunch of orphans.
Yeah.
And
there's a little sign above, right? There's a little sign above. What's it say?
What does that say? What does it say?
It says honest Bender, stolen car parts, and something, and then underneath it in like chalk or something, and orphanarium.
Right, he's added it.
Yeah,
he's trying to get rid of all of his stuff.
Which I actually did. I did Google that word, by the way, because I was like curious. It's mentioned nowhere else in history other than Futurama, and it just is another word for orphanage. Yeah,
orphanarium is not an actual thing. It's literally supposed to be orphanage, but this is the Futurama-esque version of it, right? So they go up there, and I mean, as this is happening, Bender's on the phone with, I guess, it's kind of funny actually, with like a Chinese restaurant or something, the Imperial Dragon.
Yep.
And I guess he's trying to like sell them for food.
And Fry's like right next to him, just being nonchalant about it.
Exactly. Fry doesn't know any better. So then they show up and they're like, okay, what can we do to like set you up with 12 baby humans? And she's like, or Adelaide's like, no, we just want one. He's like, okay, I'll show you what you got. This is probably my favorite. This is why I keep saying poor Albert. So Bender goes to the back room to go get the orphans to come out, and he's put like price tags on them and everything. And Leela says like, oh, this part, like when we were judged like pieces of meat in front of like the potential parents. And then as soon as Albert's like, hi, I'm Albert, and she's like, oh, he's kind of fatty.
It's kind of chubby.
And then when he steps back, the whole time we see this scene again, he's always sad. like he never changes his expression. So I just felt so bad for poor Albert. Yeah, and then Bender tries selling off Nina, and he makes comment about her not having any vampire, so 100% whatever that is.
No vampire blood in there, and it says $4.99 on her shirt, like $499.
Yeah, so like close to $500 for her, and then he has a discount, and I think it has a sash that says "as is" for Sally.
As is, yeah.
He's like, she's cursed with the third ear, but she's got that heart that has so much of that emotion. I think you call love, and Adelaide and Leela are both like, oh well, like there's so many choices. Like, well, maybe we have to think about it. So Bender sends them to bed again, obviously, but it's like 10 in the morning. But he sends them to bed for all of them to talk. And while they're about to like kind of converse and talk about this, the police come, and we see again with Earl and Smitty and like a bunch of these raiding cops, and they arrest Bender on charges of what is it, like hurting children. Forms of like hurting children or abusing children, selling them bad food, selling them as food, and like
something to do with livestock. Yeah, livestock.
And like the last like because he says like Albert is like 35 pounds or something, so maybe he lied. So whatever the case.
Yeah.
So they put Fry, Bender, and all the orphans in handcuffs, and they march them out of the door. And I don't know why, just seeing all these little kids are just like all there, and they end up in prison. So they're all standing there, and Leela and Adelaide have followed them to the prison because they still kind of wanted to adopt one of the orphans. So the police say, yeah, you can take one because they're just going to rot in the evidence locker.
Yep, that sounds like bureaucracy at its best in the real world too.
No kidding. So anyway, while they're looking, Leela sees that Sally, because she has her third ear, is getting picked on by the other orphans, and they keep calling her like, what is it, like ear face or something? Just ear face, I think it is, like ear face. And Leela suddenly has this, right, her memory of her being picked on by the other orphans, and she looks at Adelaide and says like, okay, I've made a decision, let's choose her. And Adelaide's a complete asshole, and he says like, oh, but there are so many normal children, why not just choose another normal child?
Oh, so they had a rhyme for Leela, right? Stupid as a French guy or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so ear face,
Yeah.
ear face. Sally won the ugly race. And
Yes.
Adelaide after says, the children do have a good point.
Yeah. She does have an ear on her face. Yes.
Yeah.
But Leela stands up for herself, right? She says like, but she's perfectly fine. Like she could really use a good home, because Leela knows from experience she could have used a good home. And Adelaide says like, okay, well, if you want, I can, if it really means that much to you, we can take her, and I can do a surgery that makes her acceptable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Not anything else acceptable. The perfectly neutral middle ground word.
Yeah, exactly. And Leela is like, she doesn't need, like, she freaks out at him, says that she doesn't need an operation, and honestly she should be feeling happy about herself, because that's what I should have been like when I was a child. Fry kind of pipes up in this instance like, yay, like he's vindicated, and she's like, shut up. So at the end of this, Leela ends up breaking off with Adelaide and demands that he remove like the fake eye and put her normal eye back, because otherwise she'll basically poke out one of his eyes. So
during this argument too, when she's like, Sally's fine, it cuts to Sally going, I also have a tail.
That's right.
So
she has an ear on
I
her
don't
face.
know why.
I also have a tail. Yeah.
I love that little line. I do love the line, and I love how the voice actor said it too. It's hard to imitate it, but like I just love it, because after this big thing, she's fine. She's not just because she has a third ear. I also have a tail.
That's right.
Just like,
and then she demands the eye go back, right? Yeah. So she's like, by the end of the day, one of us is going to have one eye.
I love that little part.
And then it cuts away. So how much time has passed, I guess. So somehow they got the bailout or whatever. But Bender, I guess, returns the orphans. And in honor of him returning said orphans, they rename right and the and giving the $1,200, I guess. So I guess he paid them $1,200 to take them off his hands or something. But they rename Leela's old orphanage, the Cookieville Minimum Security Orphanarium, to Bender B. Rodriguez Orphanarium. So this is yet because we just learned this last episode, I believe, right? That what his full name was. So now we see it again in there. So now that orphanarium is now forever called Bender B. Rodriguez. And Leela and Fry kind of make up, and she's clearly back to her normal self. She's got her big eye again and hugs Fry and says he's a good friend and, loves that he stood up for her and everything. And he's kind of redeemed this way. And we finish off the episode with Bender being told by the kids that he adopted that they're going to miss him, and they drew him a picture in case he ever missed them. He can look at the picture or whatever. And he says, like, whatever, like, I don't like this, Bender being Bender. Throws it into his little chest compartment, right? He doesn't throw it away, just throws it into his chest. And then as they walk away, kind of sad looking, he takes it out, he uncrinkles it, he puts it on his door, and there's like this beautiful musical cue about like, oh, like, I am going to miss these kids. But they see it, and they come and they do like a dog pile on him, similar to what they did to Fry earlier in the episode. And he yells, I hate you all, but obviously he loves them. And yeah, we cut to black, and that's the Cyber House rules. So yeah, man, like I think this episode is good. But
it's a good Leela one. It's
a really good Leela one. I honestly do, based on everything else in this season, I kind of find it forgettable. And I think I don't know necessarily why that is, because there's a lot of solid jokes. It's a really good storyline, but it's
looking at it like a lovely little gem next to a bunch of diamonds. It doesn't stand out.
There's a lot of good stuff. Like I think it's more memorable than Lobstertainment.
Oh, 100%. I think you and I agreed that Lobstertainment is probably at the bottom.
One at the bottom. Like when we finish the season, we can definitely see for sure like how I'd feel about all of them. But yeah, I think it's better than Lobstertainment for sure. But it's still obviously not my favorite. But I do like it as an episode. I think like I said, I do like world building. I do like the history of Leela. It's just, yeah, it's not my favorite. But yeah, overall, your thoughts on the episode, favorite joke, favorite scene, MVP?
MVP will probably be Fry, just because he's just saying you're like awesome as you are, you don't need to change yourself, which everyone should believe that. But yeah, there's still some things that you should change, like, oh, you have this giant mole on you, yeah, it's cancerous, take that off. If you have a giant mole on you,
I think he means personality. But yes.
Well, okay, one giant eye into two eyes is quite a big difference on a person's face. That's kind true. Of thing. But just be happy who you are, and like, it's not terrible to change yourself, but just I don't know. I'll stick with Fry just because he was kind of the odd voice of reason. Sure.
Yeah, I'd probably go Bender for this one for myself. I think Bender's side story I thought was a lot more. I thought it was quite funny. Leela's a great focal point for it, but I don't think she makes or breaks the episode in terms of humor. No. I think that's more Fry and Bender for sure. So yeah.
Oh right. Do you have any quotes or my favorite joke or whatever?
Yeah. Do you have any favorite jokes?
There was one. Yeah. It's kind of a little bit dark when you really think about it. It's when you see Warden Vogel the first time when he meets Leela, and like, Leela, Mr. Vogel, you're worthless and no one will ever love you. And they both laugh, and then Leela says, you used to say that all the time. And then Vogel would go, yes, those were happier times.
Yeah.
So it's just,
how much worse has it got?
Yeah, how much worse has it got? So I would say that one's probably one of my favorite ones. There's a whole bunch of them, but the Bender Burgers thing too is like, the cat shelter's on to me. Yeah, just Fry's basically along for a whole ride for this whole episode. I really do like that. But there's a big question here that it's never really gone into, and I just kind of forgot about it until after we watched this one, right? Sally's a mutant. She's the second mutant to go to this orphanarium.
Yeah, you're right.
So who's her parents? Is she somehow related to Leela, maybe like a cousin, so to speak? Or
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's just there's just questions because so somehow they would have to have learned that, oh hey, it worked for Leela. Like they'd have to talk to her parents. I can't remember what their names are, Mr. and Mrs. Turunga.
Munda and Morris. Yeah.
Munda and Morris. They'd have to somehow have to talk to them. So is she somehow related to Leela? Sally somehow related, or do her actual parents know the Leelas?
Right, or the Turangas.
Sorry, the Turangas.
That's a good question. I think so. There's a few mutants down there that potentially could be related to her, but or unfortunately, maybe Sally is indeed an orphan. Maybe her parents are deceased.
That
but
could
maybe
be an option there too.
Yeah, but maybe that was something that the Turangas definitely could have told whoever was in charge of Sally if they wanted her to have a good home. Maybe they could send her up to this orphanage because that's what they had to do, right? Because I think there was a few mutants that actually knew that Leela existed back, because none of them recognized her when she came into the tunnels the first time.
Yeah, the one
to the sewers.
The one Nibbler got flushed down. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so maybe you're right. Maybe she does have some kind of relation to them. But yeah, you're right. She is a mutant. I never really thought about that because she has a third ear in her tail. So yeah,
but
fair enough.
See, they could have done more with that kind of thing like in the new seasons, but no, thinking too hard is too hard.
Yeah, they don't go back and use like whatever gems they already had, right? Yeah. But I'm thinking, for myself at least, did you catch like during that scene where Bender and Fry are playing cards after the story or whatever, and then he's like, I'm sick of looking at you. The grown-ups have to talk, and he says to Fry like, come on, Ma. And then they walk off. And then afterwards, I like this line. He just says like, these kids are charging me like $110, right? I'm only getting 100. And Fry's like, oh, there goes my new kitchen cabinets. So I thought that was like kind of
I remember that line.
Joke on that. I thought that was kind of funny.
There's sleeper jokes. They're very good sleeper jokes.
Just side things. So I can see Fry being like an MVP. Like he's got like some small little things coming in and out. And he also does have that good rant about like how everybody's abnormal and like you should feel good about who you are, right?
That was the other quote. Yeah. That was the other quote that I couldn't remember was like, you're not just normal, you're abnormal. Right. Or something like that, which is not necessarily like as a
That's
compliment
not a good thing to say. Yeah. He means to say you're like better than normal, but he thinks
he does say that you're better than normal, you're abnormal.
Which, sure, yeah.
I would take it as a compliment because
right.
Abnormality is pretty awesome to be but not in medical terms. But exactly.
Exactly. So I would say that. And I also did like the Zoidberg. Like he didn't really mention this in the review, but Zoidberg was going on about having like an ink spray for your enemies.
Yes. Right. Yes.
That was kind of funny. So I did enjoy that. But that was the Cyber House rules. So
solid story.
Very good story.
Writing. Solid writing.
I think there are, as you mentioned, there are other episodes in this season that are.
This is the most normal base neutral episode.
This is the most average episode ever, but not really. It's pretty good. It's still a good episode. It's just not as good as some of the better ones of this season, because this season is packed with a lot of really good ones. So But that's the Cyber House rules. So thanks again, Mitchell, for joining me today. And next week we will have our friend Andrew again for Insane in the Mainframe, episode 12. So that'll be fun to have him back as well as another guest star. And take care, Mitchell. Toodaloo.
Toodaloo.